All right, so thank you for tuning in and chomping at the bit. I'm Kyle Edwards, of course. Now, I want to talk about the NBA playoffs. I know it's been a while since we talked again, because like I said, if you're new, appreciate you stopping by. But for those of you who've been listening, I've been saying that the past few weeks I've been kind of busy. And I was going to try to do episodes when I could, and had to make sure that I found a way to do one at some point during the weekend. So just going to check in once again with the playoff series, see where everything is, and kind of give you my quick thoughts on everything. So let's go ahead, get into all this, and hopefully you are enjoying the playoffs as I am. There's been some good games. Some of the matchups, actually the matches have been pretty good. You had your intense moments, some questionable, dirty, whatever that we'll get into. But I want to go ahead and start off with Heat, Sixers. So Sixers just got their first win of the series in Game 3, so it's 2-1 Miami. Now, they did get Joel Embiid back for Game 3, which I think was an important part because, yes, I picked Miami to win in 6, and part of that's because I feel like Joel Embiid would get 2 games, at least for Philly. He got Game 3. It was pretty much a blowout, 99-79. Now, you could look at it as, Miami, sweeping the first 2 games at home. Maybe they took their foot off the pedal or weren't fully ready mentally for Game 3. Philly took full advantage of it. Now we're going to see Game 4 what happens. How Miami adjusts to Joel Embiid now in the lineup. But I think the main story of this series is James Harden. Because once again, James Harden had a pretty forgettable game. And I believe he had like 17 points or something. And of course, it's going to raise questions about what's wrong with Joel Embiid and all this kind of stuff. I mean, not Joel Embiid, sorry, with James Harden. And for me, it just seems like he's a guy who, because remember, the NBA kind of changed how they're officiating, some of the plays where guys were embellishing contact and getting whistles for it. But the NBA switched and kind of made it more of a physical style of defense, or at least allowing more physicality on defense, and certain guys struggled with it. If you remember, James Harden, Trae Young, guys like that struggled with it early in the season. I think, Trae Young, he had his ups and downs in the season, but for the most part, he was what he was. But Harden seems like it's been a season-long type of slump. And to me, the reason for it is a lot of Harden's points were from, his little step-back 3. And if he made it, cool. But when he missed it, it seemed like for the most part he got foul calls on it because he's always throwing himself down. Tried to the hoop. He'd, throw his body into somebody, get a whistle, whether he made the shot, whatever. And you would look at some stat lines where he'd have, 12, 15, 17 free throw attempts. And he's a good free throw shooter. So he would, get his points up there and then hit a few threes and all that. Hit a few threes and all that, to, I guess, further, not pad his stats, but whatever. So, long story short, it just seems like you take that aspect out of his game, and what you're seeing is a guy that's an inefficient shooter. And because of that, we're seeing games now all of a sudden 4 for 11, 3 for 10, like 30% shooting. And I mean, I don't know. Is this something that maybe just lasts this year? He adjusts, makes whatever changes next year. I don't know. Or is this just what James Harden is at this point? I've said on here before, I was never the biggest James Harden fan, so doesn't really waver for me, my opinion of him. But I know a lot of people are surprised by what's going on here. Yes, his scoring's down. He's still giving you, 8 rebounds. Well, look at the game game 3, 17, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. So, still contributing. But for a guy that a lot of people have as a superstar, some people had him like top 10 in the league or whatever. You can forget about that, it seems like. But, so clearly for the Sixers, having Joel Embiid back gives them a chance to, extend the series out. I'm sure at this point they're thinking they win game 4, get it to 2-2, whole new series, and you take it from there. Tobias Harris still is a guy that needs to up his production. He had 9 points, and luckily with Embiid back, Harris moves back down to like the number 3, number 4 option. Depends on what you think about Tyrese Maxey and all that. If Embiid was out, Harris moves up to the number 2, number 3. And with 9 points, it'd be a bigger deal. So if you're a Heat fan, wouldn't panic just yet. See what Game 4 gives you, and then go from there. Next series, Celtics Bucks. Normally I leave the Celtics stuff for last, but talk about the East first. Why not just go to the next series? So Celtics Bucks, we saw 2 entertaining games, and we've seen the chess match between the two, which has led to a 1-1 series, with Game 3 being a big swing game. So, right now for the early part of the series, which most people think will go 6 or 7 games, I have Celtics in 6. But a lot of people have been talking about, which game should we pay more attention to? Because Game 1, we saw the Bucks come out, pretty much throw a haymaker early. Celtics struggled to recover, lost that game. Flipped to Game 2, Celtics came out, blitzed Milwaukee early, and Milwaukee could never get back into it. So which game should we take? Well, what can we take from both games is what I'm saying. What I think is, you could say, one, the way that the Celtics have been defending Giannis, I think is sustainable. Because unlike a lot of teams, the Celtics have multiple bodies they can throw at Giannis. Grant Williams has been great so far in this series, but you have Al Horford. If they were to, you could bring in Daniel Tice. Mainly it's Horford and Grant Williams. Those are the 2 main ones. But what you're seeing is the Celtics have taken, at least in Game 2, they made it tougher for Giannis to get his straight line drives to the hoop, which is what he's most effective at. And we're going to have to see in Game 3, Budenholzer has a reputation as a guy who doesn't make a lot of adjustments during a series. We'll see if anything comes about in Game 3. But clearly the Celtics' game plan is frustrate Giannis as much as you can. Make it as difficult for him as you can. For the Celtics on offense, we've seen in both games they took a lot of threes. But if you look at both games, first game, they took a lot of threes where they kind of brought it up past half court, made one pass, and a guy took a 3 that, may have been a little bit open, but they really weren't looking to work the defense to get maybe a better look. That's what they did in Game 2, and the beneficiary was Grant Williams in the corner most of the time, where they'd come down, kick it to a guy who may have a slight, slight daylight to get a shot off. Milwaukee guys run at them, up fake, dribble drive, kick, and then if that guy's open, they take it, or if a defender's running at them, up fake, swing, that kind of thing, which led to open threes in rhythm. So, yes, they took a lot of threes, but the fact that they were continuing with the ball movement, which is what really unlocked the Celtics offense after January 1st. If they continue that in Milwaukee, they'll be fine. If they go back to game one where it's kind of stagnant and taking maybe semi-contested perimeter shots, then Milwaukee has the advantage. We'll have to see if they continue to let both teams be physical, which I think they should because I love it. And if they do, it's gonna be, very physical series. It's probably the most physical series going on right now, and I do think because of that, the winner of this series, yes, maybe a little bit battered and bruised for it, but I think we'll be fully ready for the Miami-Philly winner. And it looks like Smart will be back for Game 3. So the Celtics will pretty much have everybody, on deck because we know it's going to be tough in Milwaukee for 3 and 4. Okay, so now look at the West. Suns, Mavericks. Mavericks, they get Game 3 to make the series 2-1. It's what Dallas needed, of course. They're back home. Getting Game 3 now gives them, I guess, some confidence going into Game 4 because after the first 2 games, it looked like, Phoenix could roll, maybe even a sweep, which, I had Phoenix in 5, so that's still on the table. But, yes, even though, with it being 2-1, Dallas is still behind the 8 ball on this one. Phoenix is a really good team. I fully expect Phoenix to probably win Game 4, take a 3-1 series lead, go back to Phoenix, finish it off in Game 5. But that's not to say that Luka, isn't doing as much as he can. Game 3, he had, what do you have, like 30? Let's see. Oh, yeah, 26. Okay. Brunson had 28. So, those two clearly are carrying the offensive weight right now. Dinwiddie, who was a guy that I think before the series I was saying was, somebody who needed to produce for Dallas to have a chance. He only had 4 points in 24 minutes. That's not going to get it done. Basically off the bench, they're not really getting much production. Kids running, 9 people out there. Ntilikina played 12 minutes, didn't score. Bertans played 7 minutes, didn't score. Kleber gave you 33 minutes. Where did Kleber start? I think Powell came out. Yeah, Powell played 10 minutes, gave you 2 points. So it's basically Doncic and Brunson, and then hopefully between Finney-Smith and Bullock, they get 30, 35 points. That's going to be their only shot to win games in this series. And, it is what it is. Dallas has talent, but they're still missing pieces before they could really be a championship team. If you look at their offense, it's Doncic specific. And with Brunson, I guess, coming up on a contract, we'll have to see, if a team maybe overpays for him in the offseason to lure him away from Dallas. And then Dallas is going to have to fill that need plus the other pieces that they're missing, probably like maybe a low post presence of sorts. Not one, back in like the 90s where you dump it down to them and just sit back and watch, but at least somebody who can threaten around the rim other than like Doncic on a dribble drive or something. Powell gives you something in terms of a lob off of a pick and roll, but I mean, he took 2 shots, 2 points, so he's pretty much non-existent. But hey, they got to win. At least they're not going to get swept. I mean, for Phoenix, yeah. It is what it is. They lost the game in the series. Like I said, sure they'll be fine. Booker only going 6 for 13 is a little surprising, but I fully expect them to come out game 4 and take it to Dallas there. Final series, we got Golden State and I just blanked on the team. It was a Golden State and I can picture them with hold on. Who is it? What? Memphis. Jeez, can't believe I forgot that. Okay, so Golden State, Memphis. A lot of talk around this series before we get to Game 3 Saturday. I guess just to backtrack to Game 2. The whole thing, Gary Payton, Dillon Brooks. I'm sure that's what you want to hear me talk about. So, did he deserve the flagrant 2? Yes. That's a given. When I saw the play, I was like, there's no way this guy's staying in this game. And on that, so, I'll tune into some of the daytime sports debate shows, your First Takes, your Undisputed, those type of shows. Craziest thing that I heard, I don't know if you heard it, but Antoine Walker was on First Things First, I want to say. And he basically said that Gary Payton landed wrong. And he said it was just a common playoff foul. I mean, it made me laugh a little bit only because you watch the play and Dillon Brooks goes in the full sprint, which you're supposed to do. Gary Payton has a lane to the hoop on a fast break. He's going to go contest. Yeah. Where Antoine loses me about the whole falling properly playoff foul, I can't get on board with that because if you watch it, Brooks beelines towards Payton, like cocks his hand back, brings it forward, and just hits him upside his head. Brooks never jumped and didn't look at the ball. If you're not doing those two things, how are you making a play on the ball? So clearly all Brooks wanted to do was to go over there and just make contact with Payton. Now, swinging your arm like that, I don't know how many other places on the body you could have really hit other than the side of his head. Maybe his shoulder. I don't know. But it was clearly just a play on Payton's body. He could care less where the ball was. And sure, looking back at it now, the way Payton fell may have not been the best idea. Because when he's falling, he braced himself with his arm, but he stiffened his arm out, and when he landed, that's where you see, his arm kind of, like a spring back or whatever. And when I saw it, you knew he did something to his arm. First happened, I thought maybe he might have broken his arm. But they said he broke his elbow or something like that. So, yeah. Dillon Brooks got what he deserved. Then on top of that, in terms of suspension, I was of the mind that I wouldn't be surprised if he got a suspension. But I was kind of thinking that because it happened so early in the game and then he missed the rest of the game, the league might look at that as kind of a suspension. But they went ahead and suspended him for Game 3. Not mad at it. I completely understand. Because you can't have guys just going around, hitting guys upside their head while they're up in the air. And yes, he obviously wasn't doing it to be like, oh, Gary Payton, if I hit him here, he's going to land, break his elbow. How could he predict that? But it's a play that didn't need to be made. And I think because of that, you had to throw him out and you got to suspend him. Now, for Gary Payton, it was the second. I keep wanting to say Gary Payton the third, but I think it's Gary Payton the second because he's just Gary. Yeah. So, yeah, he's going to miss time. Hopefully he can get back and, perform like he was before the injury. Hopefully there's no long-lasting effects to it or anything like that. But, and the unfortunate thing is as well, because of Dillon Brooks' actions, it kind of took away from Ja Morant's 47 points, to give them a 5-point win and even the series at 1-1. Now, for Morant, he's a guy that I've talked about before where he was 15 for 31 shooting the ball. That's, right around 50%, just below, but that's good. And yeah, for Memphis to get by Golden State, because like I said, Golden State, they've looked good. Now we'll see with Gary Payton out of the rotation, what does Steve Kerr do about it? And I guess just quickly with Steve Kerr, talking about the code and all that stuff. And some of these analysts are acting like, oh, I've never heard of this code that he's talking about. We all knew what he was talking about. He's talking about not hitting a guy up in the air. I mean, I kind of thought that was like a kind of rule that's understood because once you hit a guy up in the air, anything could happen. So, yeah, that's just a side note to it. But, yeah, so Ja Morant gets his 47. And now, of course, going into Game 3, we're going to be looking at what does Golden State do to slow him down. Now, the easiest thing to do is, you take care of the ball. If you miss a shot and you crash the boards and don't get the rebound, that's where you get in trouble because Ja Morant out in the front, in the open court, in transition, he is tough. Golden State's going to have to make sure that they keep the game at a pace where Memphis is forced to, constantly execute in the half court because that's one way you can minimize Ja Morant's, ability because when he gets to the rim, he can make tough layups and all that because he's super athletic. Half court, at least that way you can try to force him to stay on the perimeter because, yes, perimeter shooting isn't the best part of his game. Dribble driving, get to the hoop, finishing around the rim, that's what he wants to do. So I'm definitely interested to see what happens in Game 3 because, emotionally, how do both teams come out? Because even before the Dillon Brooks, well, even after the Dillon Brooks thing, whatever, in Game 2, you could see that Memphis really wanted to get physical with the Golden State players, Curry and those guys out in the perimeter. We'll have to see if that continues, and then if it does, do the referees, kind of maybe overreact to the first little incident to try to take control of the series? Now that Payton is out, not really saying retaliation or anything like that, but we know Draymond Green, very emotional, passionate guy. And he already had that incident in Game 1 where he, kind of hit Brandon Clark across the face, swiping for the ball. So do we get another incident like that in Game 3? I don't know. But I think anything's on the table right now because, one, Golden State's definitely upset because of what happened with Gary Payton as well. They should. And then Memphis is probably upset that Dillon Brooks got suspended for Game 3. And we know with it being 1-1, Game 3 is a game that's going to swing momentum one way or the other. And in a series this, close with the 2-3 seed, I mean, every little advantage or whatever is key in this series. So, I would definitely be tuning in for that one to see what goes on there. But it was a good win for Memphis. It's good to see Ja Morant get. I guess it was good. It was good to see Ja Morant just beat Ja Morant. Because at times in that Minnesota series, he looked. I mean, I don't know what the word I'm looking for here, but it's not like out of sorts or anything like that. But there were possessions where he almost looked out of place, and he would kind of just stand out of the way. But yeah, game 2, he was fully involved. A lot of opportunities to run the break, and that's where he thrives. So with these series, we have some that have played game 3. We have a couple of game 3s coming up over the weekend. A couple of game 4s coming up. So we'll see in terms of Golden State, Memphis, and Milwaukee, Boston. Who could take the pivotal game 3 and try to ride that momentum into a game 4. And then with the other 2 series, Phoenix and, Miami, Philly, Phoenix, and Dallas, with Miami and Phoenix both being up 2-1. Will they be able to take, full stranglehold in the series and get to 3-1? Will Philly and who's the other team now? It's a weird jumping back and forth from east to west. So Miami and Dallas be able to even up their series, and then that way kind of reset everything. So very interesting. Trying to see what other developments there have been. The Lakers have started their coaching search. I'm not going to really get into that now, but that's something definitely to watch during these playoffs, because they're starting to see some names coming out. Mark Jackson went up for the job. Terry Stotts. Some other guys. I mean, that whole thing is going to be very interesting. To me, kind of assuming if they interviewed Mark Jackson and Mark Jackson did the interview, that's probably the guy they probably want at this point, unless somebody else presents themselves that's a better option. I mean, I don't. We'll see what other names get thrown into the hat there. But yeah. So kind of just wanted to jump on real quick, talk some NBA playoffs, and yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. I've also been watching NHL playoffs, mainly Boston, to be honest with you. So I'll probably do an episode here coming days about Boston. About the Bruins and Hurricanes, what I've been noticing there. Bruins down 2-1, but we'll see. But yeah, so I guess just to close this out, back to Boston, Milwaukee. I've said before, the winner of Milwaukee, Boston will probably come out of the East. I'm sticking with the Celtics in 6. And quick little exchange between Stephen A. and Kendrick Perkins, where I think Stephen A. has the Celtics in 7. Perkins, I believe, has the Celtics in 6 like me. But then Perkins kind of doubled down on it. He said he has the Celtics winning it all this year. Which, if that were to happen, I would be fully on board with it. And I would, I'd lose my mind. But we'll see. It'll be tough. Because, Miami, Philly waiting next round. Team coming out of the West. Maybe Phoenix, Golden State. It's going to be a tough road. So, yeah. So let me know, I guess, wherever you are listening to this. You can put it down in the review or whatever comment section. Let me know what you think about the playoffs so far. What do you think about the whole Dillon Brooks situation? Do you think he should have been suspended? Do you think it wasn't a flagrant 2 and just a hard foul like some people do? But yes, so let me know. You can let me know who's your favorite to win it all or finals matchup. Whatever you want to do, go ahead and let me know. What else? Yes, also, I guess be on the lookout. Possible changes coming. In terms of, I guess, what we'll do with the podcast and other stuff like that. But make sure you listen out for it. So, thanks again. I believe that's everything. Thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, you can go ahead and check out some other episodes, some previous episodes I did. Of course, you're returning. You know the deal. Hit the like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Follow me over on Twitter @ChompingPodcast. I will kind of tweet during games that I'm watching, and we can kind of interact over there as well. So, thanks again. Also, it's Mother's Day weekend, so for the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. Also, for those of you listening, make some plans for the weekend. Do something nice for your mom. But be safe out there. God bless. And I'll catch you next episode. All right. I'm out. Have a good one.